This is what everyone's talking about.
Everything's on the table.
This is what champions come to take. This is what everyone came to see.
And the slam!
No do-overs. No second chances. No more Mr. Nice Guy. This is winner take all. And it's all happening now on the home of the NBA Finals. Don't miss it. June 3rd on ABC and the ESPN app.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Allie.
And this is our last episode before our 3 weeks summer break in line with the NWSL. That's right, Allie and I only get a 3-week break because we love football and we love you all so much. So just a reminder, this is the last episode, 3-week break, and then we will return 2 days before the NWSL restarts. So we're back Wednesday, July 1st. NWSL restarts 2 days after that on July 3rd. And as promised, what do we have for everybody today, Allie?
It's an NWSL special, sort of, but it is mainly focusing on the NWSL. There is a little bit of English football in there just because a very big game happened over the weekend that we have to talk about. It'd be primarily the NWSL. I'm wearing my Orlando Pride t-shirt in honor.
There we go. The Orlando Pride t-shirt, 2024 NWSL champions. Actually, that might be a hot topic for us to discuss, the Orlando Pride, when we come on to it. But yes, as Allie said, it's all things NWSL. But before we jump into all things NWSL, we're going to spend a short 5 minutes or a long 5 minutes, we will find out, on the FA Cup.
We want to talk about the transfer news that literally dropped 2 hours ago UK time.
Do it.
Because Arsenal no longer have Katie McCabe. She has gone to the blue side of the city and has signed for Chelsea for 3 years. As our resident Arsenal fan, Sarah, how are we feeling?
Well, as you know, when you sent me the photo, I asked you if it was AI or Photoshopped. The photo doesn't make sense in my brain, to be totally honest with you. It's very weird. I am excited to see how Chelsea fans now react to her apparent, what used to be fouls in their mind. Now maybe they won't be as up in arms about everything. We'll see how that happens. We missed so much transfer news between last Wednesday and this Wednesday. Obviously not transfer news, but we officially know that Alexia Putellas is leaving Barcelona, along with Mape Leon. We don't know where either of them are going yet, but
Rumored London City.
Of course, the moment we talk about it, we'll probably find out in between this recording, and when we release this episode. But that's how it goes. How are you feeling about Katie McCabe in a Chelsea uniform? Do you care?
No, is the honest answer. I'm like, it is what it is. I said it to you, and I've said it to other fans, and I'll say it again. I will be interested to see how Arsenal fans react now to her antics and whether they still think it's funny.
I guess we'll find out. With that being said, let's do it. A quick FA Cup, and then all things NWSL. All right, we are joined by Mike. I feel like we just refer to you as Mike and no last name on this, so I was like, why should I even say your last name?
That's absolutely fine. I've been let out of my box, to be sad. As the podcast resident Brighton fan, I was at Wembley on Sunday, and I didn't have any fun at all.
A podcast pro, truly. He introduced himself. I don't even have to say it. Editor, producer, Brighton fan, Mike is here to talk about it. Maybe I will mediate this as the two of you got to watch this in real time. But Manchester City took the win and took home the FA Cup. They took down Brighton 4-0 at Wembley for their fourth ever FA Cup. 2017, 2019, 2020, and now 2026 are their FA Cup victories. A great season for City, and what a way to cap it off. But let's chat about this game, because I think that, I don't know, actually, maybe we all had different opinions of what was going to happen. I personally thought Brighton were going to really put up a fight and could maybe scrape one out against City. How are you both feeling going into this?
So I was kind of torn. I'd kind of went in with the intention of thinking that they could do something, even though I didn't really believe it in my kind of in my heart that it was actually going to be a win, but I figured I'd expect the team to believe that they could get something out of it, so it felt like I should feel the same way. And to be fair, for that first 25-30 minutes, there was something happening. It was on the cards, but then after that point, after the kind of chances were missed, you kind of really felt the energy kind of drain out of the stadium in kind of real time as it became clear that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah, I wrote in our group chat, I had hope, and Mike wrote, it's the hope that kills you. Were there a lot of Brighton fans?
There was a lot of Brighton fans, a good number of City fans, and then a million Arsenal fans because of the men's victory parade. So it was quite bizarre walking out of King's Cross Station to a sea of red flares and red shirts with me alone in my Brighton shirt.
I didn't realize it overlapped with the parade.
Dude, don't even, right? So not only did you have the Women's FA Cup, you then had the Arsenal Victory Parade, and you had Soccer Aid, which is a international charity football match that was happening at West Ham's gaff. It was all happening on the same day.
Central London was complete chaos. It was an absolute nightmare. Tube stations closed down, nothing doing. But the Arsenal fans seemed like they were having fun, so we'll let them off.
Okay. Yeah, they needed their fun after they lost the Champions League game, right? But we're not here to talk about men's football. Allie, I feel like you said something very similar to how Mike described the air just kind of got taken out of the stadium when Brighton didn't finish their chances, and you said something relatively similar about your take on the game and that it could have gone a different way. Could you share with the larger audience what you were saying earlier?
Yeah, no, I think this was the epitome of you were going to rue not taking your chances, because I would say for the first half an hour, it was all Brighton, and there were certain things that Fran Kirby especially had a couple of chances that she should have put away. Hayley had a couple of chances she should have put away, and they just didn't, or they were really tame efforts that was very easy for the City goalkeeper to save. I will also say that Ndozi's done what she's done all season, which he came running out for that second goal and allowed the player to slot past her. So that was less than fun. But honestly, I think Brighton did put up a good shift, and I think 4-0 is really, really harsh.
Yeah, I will say I wasn't super sad about the result in the end. I was kind of sad that I wasn't sad that Brighton lost particularly, but I was sad that it kind of turned into a bit of a battering, because I don't think that reflected on. I was sad for the team. It don't reflect that on the game and on their kind of season as a whole, that it ended 4-0. Not taking the chances was the big ththing. And, on another day, Fran Kirby puts that away. We've seen her do it in FA Cup finals before for Chelsea, yeah, just a bit of a letdown, really. And it sucks for Ndozi that kind of the headlines and the comments after the final are kind of on her bad goalkeeping, when that's not reflective of her season, or even in the game, really. She made a lot of key saves in the second half that could have really run the score up even higher than 4-0. So
yeah,
just a bit of a letdown.
Is there anything else we want to insert about this game? Allie, Mike, anything else?
Does anyone want to mention Man City at all?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Not really. I'm going to be honest. They were good. They were good. Obviously, 4-0 is a great result, but I do think they're a little bit hungover from the league win, and they weren't the unstoppable force we have seen. They put up a good fight, but you know what? Fair play to them. They managed to do what they managed to do.
I will say I can switch out and put my Lionesses hat on for a second, because Alex Greenwood had an absolutely insane game. She was absolutely all over the place. I think actually Brighton were kind of hurt. We talked after the semi-final that, I was happy for it to be a Man City game rather than against Chelsea or Arsenal, because we know that we'd beaten them before. But I think actually that hurt Brighton in a way, because they knew what to look out for. Hemp and Greenwood really doubled up on Kiko on Brighton's right-hand side. And then Greenwood was just all action all over the pitch. I think a goal and an assist and a goal line clearance. I mean, you can't ask for more than that in an FA Cup final, really. That's kind of as good as it gets.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like City will make the adjustments after seeing a team once, and it's clear that they very much did. Well, congratulations to Manchester City. A WSL title, FA Cup trophy. What a season to really close it out here for, the England side of the pond. Now let's move it into the NWSL. We are joined by the one and only, the legend himself, Fook Win, who I am so very excited to finally get on the podcast. Fook, for those of you who might not know, is the site manager for All for 11. covers the NWSL for AP News, is a senior writer at Stumptown Footy, and host of the Rose City Breakdown. Fook, thank you so much for joining us to talk all things Portland Thorns.
Well, I felt like you listed off all my outlets, and I feel like it's as long as a Target receipt at this point.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Who does Fook work for? Yes, is the answer.
Yeah.
So.
Listen, we're all out here hustling. We met almost 3 years ago now, I guess, which is wild to say. And for those who are listening, have just crossed paths at every single NWSL event that we possibly could. Fook, alike to Allie and myself, just kind of saw a need for reporting on NWSL and just went for it, and is basically the go-to source for all things Portland Thorns. It's no wonder he got hired by AP News, All for 11, everything like that. So truly one of the good ones, and I'm excited to talk Portland with you.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I think this has been a long time coming. I feel like you've talked about this a few times, and I've had you on my podcast a few times, which is great. So yeah, looking forward to it. Like I said, it's been an interesting season for Portland already. So there's definitely a lot to discuss. And honestly, I'm looking forward to, I'm meeting so many new people in this space, and it's always been one that is so welcoming for me.
I am so pumped. So we'll try to keep it short, but maybe we'll just get into all of it. I don't even know where to begin. Allie, should we just start largely out wide with the first half of the season?
Yeah, so I actually just have a really quick question, which is, are you as surprised as the rest of us how well the season has started for Portland? Because we were going to be honest, we didn't rate you very highly at the very beginning.
Yeah, Sarah told me that, and I was laughing because so here's the thing. I didn't think they were going to start really well, right? I thought they were going to end really well just because they were going to get healthy. Robert Villaham would get more adjusted and acquainted to the league. But, if you look at their metrics right now, you would just assume they're hovering around the playoff line, right?
Mm.
But here's the thing, this team plays with a lot of grit, right? If the defensive shape has gotten a lot better from last year. Mackenzie Arnold continues to be in the top few keepers for goals prevented, but am I surprised right now that they're number 2 in the league? Yes. If you told me they would have been anywhere from 6 to 8, no, I think that would have been more, if you look at their metrics, I think that's kind of where they belong. But the fact that I think they have so much star power in the front line, Soph Wilson has come alive. Pietra Torton has made that big leap. Raylan Turner has made that big leap. And then you also have Jessie Fleming making a big leap, right? And then Olivia Moultrie taking her superstardom to a new level.
You mentioned stats, and I feel like you mentioned this on your podcast. So if you don't mind sharing with all of our listeners, what specific stats are you looking at when you say the data, when you look at their statistics, it doesn't necessarily indicate that they should be second in this league right now?
Expected goals differential is what I look at mainly, right? I think it's hard when you look at that because they're absorbing so much pressure, right? And that's what worries me. Especially look at this last game against Utah, not including the PK from Soph Wilson at the end. They were out-generated pretty much for the whole portion of this game, except at the end where they were chasing the goal. And then obviously the XGs flipped a little bit with the PK, right? So if you look at that, the differential for most of the season, I think that they were in the negatives for a long time. I think they still might be, or it's close. But point is, if you look at all the elite teams, they are very clearly in a positive number, right? So I think that's what you look at. I check it every week, just because I'm very curious. But for Portland, the way they play is, especially defensively, it's more of a bend but don't break type of defense, right? So that's why they absorb so much pressure. But should they be absorbing that much pressure? Probably not, because they're not really built for that. But just kind of looking at what they've been able to do, especially Sam Hyatt has been leading that really well. Then you look at the fullbacks. I think, Vignola, you and I have spoken about that. Vignola's difference, right? 9-day difference for Portland Thorns. And then I think they still have a center back issue because the one big issue we've been looking at for Portland Thorns, I think we'll talk about this in a second, is their inability to play out of the press, right? It has been so glaring. It doesn't matter who they play. If the other team has the right pressing triggers, they struggle pretty much to build out of it. But they have superstars, in the front four, and typically they'll find moments of brilliance and magic, right? So that's what's been happening a lot this season.
goal differential is +6. They've scored 20, which is the most of anybody in the league, but then they've conceded 14. And you have to go all the way down to 6th place to get another team that has conceded at least that many goals in the top part of the table. You kind of mentioned we were going to talk about the high press, and you are correct. I don't know how you got there or before me, but we have to talk about the most recent game because this first half of the season, it closed out with, in my opinion, arguably the best matchup of the weekend, which was Portland hosting Utah. These two teams were locked on points going into the game. They're locked on points coming out of it after a 2-2 draw. That was the final score, but Portland kind of like barely escaped. Penalty by Sophia Wilson in the 90th minute. It was what equalized it. We'll come on to that in a second because I texted you about it, and I think it might be a load of BS, but it doesn't matter because we have to talk about this game. And I think that was kind of like a microcosm of Portland as a whole in this first part of the season. What did you like from this game, and what weak spots did you see that Utah were able to exploit? I'm guessing the first point maybe in the weak spots was going to be the press and trying to beat the high press.
Yeah, I think Utah did a couple things really well, right? Just their pressing triggers were really, really good all game long. Portland could not get out of elude pressure outside of a few ventures forward from Olivia Moultrie or Soph Wilson. Soph Wilson had a heck of a game, but she needs help, right? I don't think she got enough from Torden in this game. Turner had some good moments when she came on in the second half as well, but it's just a little bit inconsistent. I think those young players are getting a little worn down, especially with Kai Hanks coming back, next July or August, Morgan Weaver coming back. They'll have a lot of time to rotate, which is great. And then the second thing that BFC did when they wanted to, they played Route 1, right? Direct football. And it gave a lot of fits, especially with the overloads, right? They had so many times where there was it's 6-on-6 or 5-on-5. And Portland can't handle that, especially when it's all on one fullback to handle. And I was looking at some of the fullback charts from Utah, and Utah just, Tanaka had looks all day long. Lacasse had looks all day long. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, this is not probably what Portland drew out. And they knew what they were going to expect too. And then with Utah, Utah does everything just really well. They play great team football as well. So their possession numbers were there too. You know what I mean? So everything that Utah needed to do to win this game, they did, outside of a few weird moments, right? And I think that's for Utah, the only thing holding them back is themselves. It's not even, I don't think Portland earned this draw. I know a lot of folks are like, oh, maybe they did. No, they didn't. It's okay to admit that, you know what I mean? And for me, it's just I cover this team very objectively. I've been very harsh with we'll talk about the coaching hiring in a second, but I've been very harsh with a lot of things. But at the same time, when they play well, you give them credit, right? So yeah, just looking at that, I thought Utah just dominated just how the proceedings went. Portland just has, we were saying this so many times, but Portland has superstars on this team, right? And then Jessie Fleming's defending literally the whole game. And Bulgaria had probably her worst game of the season too. So a lot of things just kind of fluctuated there. Then Reina Reyes getting overloaded on her side. Typically teams are just attacking Reina Reyes at this point, right? And then because Vignola's just been too stout, right? And then once they start overloading Reina Reyes, guess what happens after that? They start overloading Sam Hyatt and the center backs, right? So it was a long day for Portland. They were able to hold on. Mackenzie Arnold had 6 saves? She's been making those big saves all season long. I think there's even a double or triple save that she made as well. But yeah, Utah just played great football. The ball was flying around. They had purpose when they went with their pressing triggers, right? Especially when they got the turnovers and things like that. And Portland's gonna have to figure out a way. They might just have to make big additions when the window opens up in July, and just go, we need to add a 6. We need to add a stud center back who can actually control the ball. Maybe they buy low on Sam Stopp. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of ideas, but they do need to do something. They can't kind of continue this because eventually the results are gonna go their way.
I feel like you foreshadowed our next 2 questions in the coaching and what comes next. Allie, go ahead.
You did. So first off, did you have any preconceived notions about the new coach, Robert Villaheim? Because he had a less than stellar run at Tottenham. And so I was quite surprised he came to Portland. And how much credit do you need to give him for this turnaround from last season?
Yeah, that's a great question, Allie. I think one of the big things is I want to lead off with Sarah Loudon first, because Sarah Loudon's the one that did pretty much all the heavy lifting with Vitas, assistant coach Vitas, in the offseason. And if you ask the players, you ask like anybody in the Portland Thorns organization, they give her pretty much all the credit for the offseason and preparing the players for whatever happened next, right? So I think that was the reason why they like were so prepared to start the season. Because I'll be honest with you, I would be shocked if Sarah Loudon wasn't a head coach in the league like by next year, right? Or the year after, whenever her contract expires. And then you look at Wilhelm, what he did when he came in, the reason why it works right now is because he didn't come in and overhaul the whole system, right? He didn't come in and just go, this is how we're going to play football, right? You can tell there's elements that he wishes that this team could do, like play from the back. They cannot play from the back to save their lives, okay? I've seen them try multiple times, and I'm like, it's okay. Like, you don't have the personnel to run it, especially at center back. You don't have the 6 to run the system. Like, if he had a Sam Coffey running the system, it would look beautiful, right? Like, they just don't have that, though. But what the credit I give him is he is so refreshingly, like, transparent after losses or draws or even wins. He will tell you how he sees the game, and we didn't play well. We got the win, but we didn't play well. This is the reasons why that we need to improve. He talks about playing out of the press all the time, and he asks the players to be brave, and some of them just don't have that in their like skill set, right? And that's okay. But just since he's come on, like the reason why I know it works is he has a great relationship with the players, right? He's got an open door policy, right? And where they can always bring up things to him. He's got his staff in place now. Jen Lawler just came from Gotham FC, and she's working with the players one-on-one, right? And now he knows his personnel, right? Like, and the best part is week to week, he doesn't change too much, right? He knows it was supposed to be this June window when he got to talk to a lot of the players, and then this last international window. So that's why it's been working so well. He hasn't been trying to like put too much on players' plates, but he knows where his superstars are, right? He'll put them in places to succeed. Like, he's talked about Jessie Fleming, for instance. Jessie Fleming has been out like one of those players who's been overlooked with Rob Gale as head coach because he didn't know what to do with her. I mean, frankly, he didn't make a lot of good calls last year, right? When it came down to it. And Jessie Fleming's playing arguably her best football of her career. So that's why I think why Wilhelm's been doing a stellar job. I think there's a few things where people are like, oh, but how about the adjustments in games and things like that? It's hard when you can't play, like we talk about this all the time, but the inability to play on the press, eventually it's slightly a structural issue. I fully admit that, but at the same time, you need personnel to run it too. Like, if you want to play a certain style, then you're going to need to make those adjustments. So ownership is going to be on high alert this summer, because if they don't make those moves for Wilhelm, a lot of the same things are going to happen, right? Like, you could have all the star power up front, but how are you going to get them the ball?
I was about to ask about Sam Coffey, because it does feel like when you think about breaking a high press, you think about having to have a good 6 that can work the ball around. You talk about being brave. It usually has to come from the 6 who knows how to play out of a high press, and it has to involve some kind of a brave move by usually somebody in the middle of the field, because you're not going to break a high press going wide. You're just not. You have to play through the middle at some point and then find the pockets wide. And you look at this Portland Thorns team and you can't help but think, wow, with where they are now in second place in the league, imagine what they'd be doing with Sam Coffey at the number 6. This is kind of what we were going to ask you next, which was this feels like an odd break that we don't usually get in the NWSL, where it's not a major international women's tournament. Most teams, other than, of course, this international break, are going to have an extended period of time with the majority of their players. And it kind of feels like a little mini transfer window, if you will, even though it's not a transfer window, where teams and GMs can go reassess and think, okay, well, we got that off of our plate. Now what holes do we need to fill so that we can either stay at the top or make a run at the top for this next part of the season? So if you are the GM of the Portland Thorns and you can make additions to the roster, what do you add? What do you need to change so that you can continue to stay at the top and finish at the top come October?
Yeah, I mean, I think the glaring hole, like this isn't, I think Cassandra Bulgaria, she's built more like a 10 anyways, or even as an 8. Like, she's built more as an 8/10, and she's been trying to play the 6. I think defensively she's gotten better throughout the season, but just her inability to play those quick passes, in pressure and dribble out of, elude pressure. She just hasn't been able to do it, right? Like, consistently, right? And you look at her passing percentages. For me, I want my 6s in the 80s, right? For passing. I think last time I checked, she was still in the 70s most of the games and everything, and she doesn't really have a long ball. Like Sam Coffey could play 30, 40-yard dimes. Left foot, right foot, didn't matter. And that's why Portland was able to do what they did last year, right? Even if they didn't really have a good finisher. And then this year, Bulgaria's just been out of her element, right? Like it's very apparent to most Portland, people who watch any games, right? National media, I think, is catching up to that narrative as well. But you look at that, I think that the 6 is such a glaring need. And it's funny because I think they don't need like a superstar there. They need somebody who's just a natural 6, right? So looking at that for sure. And then center back, depends how much they want to overhaul this, because I know they're big on Carolyn Calzada, and rightfully so. She's got speed there, and they don't really have a speed. Like I always thought they needed a speed center back, but now it's very apparent they need a ball handling center back, right? And I think I mentioned it earlier, Sam Staub would be like a big choice there. And then at the 6, maybe they want more of like a tradition, like a Taylor Flint who's been coming on, right? Because Racing Louisville has not been playing good football. Does Taylor Flint want to stay at Racing if they're struggling this much, right? So there's a lot. So those two in-house, I love players, international, like in Europe, like Nagano, right? So there's a lot of options. I know Willem is definitely going to want to tap into the European market as soon as possible. So so Nagano is like one of those names. I've made like a long list of like 12 6s.
Yeah, I want to know. That was going to be my next question. I was like, obviously there's plenty of 6s out in the world, but then when you start to think about filling a very specific hole, the list might get a little small. Can you name some off of this 12-person list?
Yeah. Well, it's great that you asked me, because I'm literally writing this right now, like for paid subscribers.
Oh shoot. You don't have to give us all of it. Save some for your paid subscribers.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is like if you're looking at what you are trying to accomplish, right? Like domestically, you would probably just point at Taylor Flint, because that makes a lot of sense. If you're looking at like if you want to make a big move, like it might be Angelina from Orlando, right? So and then Seattle, if they're struggling more, do you try to like look up Sam Meza? So those are the names some of those names. And then Nagano was my like number one choice, because with Liverpool, definitely balling out for sure. But at the same time, like, do you want to make that big leap? Because Portland has a lot of great history with Japanese players, right? And Japanese players in general in NWSL just makes a lot of sense to me. So that was the one European one I had that I have like 10 more, but like I said, let's just keep it short.
Save it for your paid subscribers. Tell everybody where they can go access that also, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah. So just pull it up on Sometime Footy. It'll be out later this month. But the biggest thing is, even if they don't find the big name, like you can easily find more of like, because Maria Mueller, fullback for Portland, came out of nowhere, right? Like that's what Portland's going to do. That's their MO for their front office, right? They like looking up players, finding those gems. And I guarantee you, if they pick up a 6, it's probably going to be one that you don't know. And you're just not as familiar with, right? And that's what I expect to happen this summer. They're probably going to pick up, I would assume they pick up at least probably make 2 moves in the summer. I assume it's going to be center back and at the 6, because Wilhelm's going to want to play from the back in the second half. And then the one thing you said, maybe it's just they just need this break, because Jenny Imethen, who is a trialist, got her short-term contract, got extended minutes. I think she played about, 20, 30 minutes this past game. And she outplayed Bulgaria. What she's done, in this little cameo role, she's outplayed Bulgaria already. So, and this is nothing against Bulgaria, but like Jenny Imethen did the simple things well, right? Like quick touches, combinations, good pressure, everything that you want in a 6, did it. Like, do they just kind of play it in house? They have Shea Harvey as well, but Shea Harvey, if you ask Shea Harvey what she prefers to play, probably more of an 8, right? So, like, out of all the options they have in house, Jenny Imethen's the most natural 6 they have. And, and she played center back in college too. So it's a lot of options, like I said. And then, but yeah, like the list will be long. I think I'm going to make another 10-player list.
I love the Sam Meza shout. That would be wild. I have a crazy suggestion before we let you go. How would you feel? I'm going to sound like such a homer when it comes to Stanford players, but whatever.
You are, Ben. You're so biased all the time. You're like, there's this baller in college. Are they from Stanford? Yes.
Oh, you're thinking Elise Evans?
I'm thinking Elise Evans. I mean, she's not getting any playing time in Chicago. God only knows why, because she's an outstanding talent. She probably could have gone to any NWSL team. She picked Chicago, and they're not using her well. They're at the bottom of the table. It's clearly not a good setup for her. There's a lot of turnover. So go somewhere else. And I think, she's one of the rare center backs that has both speed and can play really, can kind of pull the strings out of the back. So
yes, that's
kind of what I want to see.
No, I do too. I think she was in my center back list for the summer too, by the way. And I just sat there. I just sat there because I'm like, I've just never seen a team. This is like Chicago's just really badly managed, right? Like they just let go their GM, obviously. And I'm just sitting here. I'm like, this team can't be worse, can they? Yeah, they can. Yeah. Like Elise Evans not getting a minute. Like we've seen Leslie Ryder talk about it all the time too, which is great. And honestly, at this point, I'm just like, why don't you just put her on loan at this point? See, and you don't have to give her a buy option, right? Where you just go, oh, we'll send you to Portland, but you do not get to stay in Portland after, you know what I mean? And that's what Portland needs right now. They need that little, Calzada has the speed, that to match up with Elisa Evans, but she doesn't have the ball skills, right? So that's what I'm looking at, because I think Portland would be willing to give a shot. Willingham has been more of a brave coach this season, as more I just didn't expect that from him, but he told me, he was like, look, I'm trying to be brave. This is what we need to do. You know what I mean? And I think Elise Evans makes a lot of sense. And then obviously I think there's so many underutilized European center backs too. So I'm looking at that. I think center back's one of the easier positions to fill, but ball handling center backs, way different, right? It's tough to find one of those.
Fook, this has been wonderful. Allie, do you have any leftover questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Not a question, but it's more of a heads up. If you've got Mackenzie Arnold in goal, as someone who had to suffer through 2 seasons of Mackenzie Arnold, do not encourage her to play out from the back. She cannot do it and will lead you to concede. So if you have any sway, I would suggest keep playing out, not out from the back.
Yeah. I've been keeping up with, because I know when originally that's what they wanted her to do, right? Especially when she was first signed with Portland. And obviously just with the way they're set up right now, the width, especially playing from the back, is terrible, right? So the shape is really off, especially in the counters. But yeah, distribution wise, I think she's been really good with the longer distribution, but the shorter distribution has been really interesting, because the whole back line have struggled with it too. So I don't necessarily disagree with you at all.
Before we let you go, for everybody listening, Fook does an amazing job covering not just Portland, but also all of the NWSL, as I mentioned, for AP News. Fook, for those who want to find you on social media, where can they go?
It's under @Fukerman, PHUOCERMAN. Yes, does it sound like a superhero? I hope it does, because it's the new age of superhero, and his name is Fukerman. But yeah, then obviously if you want to see All for 11, it's just All for XI on Blue Sky, Twitter. Obviously we don't try to go on Twitter as much, but that's part of it, unfortunately. And then obviously for AP News, I just posted on my personals anyways. So yeah, you'll get everything. And then Stumptown Footy, obviously just at Stumptown Footy. But yeah, if you're looking for Portland news, I have that. And then I beat reporter with my team, wonderful team at All for 11. Sarah even does a few great features a year as well. And then AP News, just check there for all the recaps as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're gonna bring you back maybe halfway through the second half of the season, if you're up for it, and see how all of these predictions align with what's actually going down. Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world.
To North America, the USA will take on Brazil twice during the international break, once on the 5th of June and once again on the 10th. Canada will then take on Costa Rica also on the 10th.
And to South America, we are 3/4 of the way through the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers. Currently, Argentina and Colombia are in the top spots. In this round, Argentina will take on Peru and Ecuador, whereas Colombia take on Uruguay and Paraguay.
Over to Asia, and Australia will take on Mexico twice, and Japan will take on South Africa also twice in the next 4 days.
And finally to Africa, Morocco will take on New Zealand this break, and Kenya will take on Zimbabwe. Tunisia will take on Egypt. All friendlies take place between the 5th and 11th of June. right, let's do it. We're talking all things NWSL. Well, continuing to talk all things NWSL. We had a great chat about Portland, and now it's time to really dive in. We've got two pieces of news, I guess, that we want to cover, and then we're going to really get into this end of first half summary. So first and foremost, we have to talk very quickly about a comment that Allie actually brought to my attention, made by former U.S. Women's National Team player and former NWSL player Tobin Heath on kind of like the current state and potential future of the NWSL.
Yes, so Tobin was asked about the NWSL and about the recruitment of the NWSL, and she said that she has this massive fear that the NWSL is just going to become a retirement league, and it's just going to be the kind of league that players go once they've had the best years of their career, and it's somewhere where they can make a little bit of money before they retire. And that said, that's just going to be the detriment to the league because you're never going to grow. It's going to be a constant flow of players. Young talent may not get a chance to go in. And so I just thought it was really interesting that she thought that.
Yeah, you sent this to me and I was like, yeah, we can talk about it, because I said this about the NWSL like within the past year, basically, because we have been seeing this trend where, you know, you can name so many players in the league right now where, for example, I'm sitting in the Bay Area right now and you look at Bay FC and they've brought in Christina Giorelli, who has had an incredible career at Juventus, and yes, she's just on loan, but it's just another example of a player that, this is not a knock to her, but she's certainly on the latter part of her career and is now coming to play in the NWSL. And that's not to say it's not a great get for Bay FC, but I do think that some of us have been kind of like sounding this alarm for a while. And I think how it came up for us and why I mentioned it a while ago is when we were talking about the salary cap, because the salary cap is the reason we're starting to see this trend. Yes, we have this new like high impact player rule, but teams can't shell out and compete for the top of the top talent right now. Like if you want to go and you want to get the best player in the WSL, you can't, because you can't compete with how much they're getting paid in the WSL. It's the same reason why Sam Coffey, well, I'm not saying that Coffey went to England just for money. That's not what I'm trying to say here, but she could get more money at Manchester City in the peak of her career, than she could get playing in the NWSL in the peak of her career. And if something about that doesn't change, that is how the NWSL is leaning right now. That's the way the ball is rolling. And if something doesn't change, it just will continue to roll that way. Do you agree, Allie, or how do you feel?
No, I agree. I do. It's curious. It's one of those things that I always felt, going to the other end of the spectrum, was we always said that the draft wasn't particularly fair because, you know, you're making players play where they may not necessarily want to, but that was definitely a way to bring young blood into the league. And we are still getting that young blood, but it is definitely, the NWSL is probably one of the highest paid in the world of like leagues. So it's where people are going to go when they want to make that bank.
I feel like we need to look at this though, because the average salary in the NWSL is like between 70 and 80,000, which in the current state of the United States is frankly unlivable in a lot of, like, you can't live on that in New York. You can't live on that in San Francisco, that you can't live on that in LA. Like that's, I don't know other cities. I've only lived in those three. But that's kind of where we are. So when you talk about like average salary and highest salary, like, you know, England still has deeper pockets. Barcelona still have deeper pockets. You can say,
I disagree. I've just done the equivalent. So for my UK listeners, $70,000 is $52,000 a year. The average salary for a WSL player in the top league is $35,000 a year. So that is a good nearly 20,000 more by playing in the NWSL.
I think this is exactly what we're saying, though. Okay, so that's a great. Thank you for this statistic. So I think that on average, then the average player is maybe getting more in the NWSL, but the stars are not getting paid more. Like if you are a star and you want money, you're not going to play in the NWSL. That's why the high impact player rule even came into effect, because Trinity Rodman was, you know, wanted to stay, but was like, hey, I can get so much more money elsewhere because there's no salary cap over there. They'll pay me $1 million over there. And here in the salary cap, you can't, hence the high impact player rule. So, and that's what the high impact player rule is trying to kind of solve for is, okay, we want to bring the star players in the peak of their career, who is the biggest star in the world right now, bring her in and we can pay her. But I don't think that it's necessarily going to solve for that. I think that unless the salary cap maybe starts to raise a lot higher, we're still going to have this issue. Would you agree that it's maybe like the average salary you can get at a higher rate, but your star players aren't going to be paid as much?
Yes and no. I think probably as a base salary, the WSL Europe is probably a little bit higher, but I do think what the USA has got going for it that the UK specifically doesn't is the fact that you have more endorsement deals over there. You are more likely to get a deal with a bigger company in the States. We don't like to do that over here. We're very much, you can't show favoritism. You'll see it occasionally in tournaments when suddenly the Lionesses are shilling me deodorant. But for the most part, you cannot show that you are linked to a certain brand. You are doing certain things. You can't, which you can in the NWSL, which is why I feel like if you're about to retire, you can make that bank because you can go across and then suddenly you're doing a deal with the Bank of America, which you cannot do in the UK.
Perhaps it's both then. I mean, like, so in 2026, the NWSL base salary cap for a team is $3.5 million. I'm looking at the highest paid players in the world. For example, Aitiana Bonmati gets paid $1.1 million. You're going to spend a third of your salary cap on one player? You can't do that. Again, hence the high impact player rule. But I think that that's still a problem here. I think that the salary cap, while solving for a lot of other issues, is also creating a lot of problems in the NWSL, where maybe you could pay one player big money, but you can't pay them all. I'm looking at the list of highest paid players. There's only one player on this list that belongs to the NWSL. Everybody else is playing in Europe because there's no salary cap. And I think as this space continues to progress, I just think that the gap might get wider. I don't know.
No.
Any other thoughts on this, Allie?
No, I think you're true.
Keep going. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay, I guess this just leads us to something we've talked about so much, which is, then is it worth scrapping the salary cap? I feel like there's always a balance that the NWSL is trying to strike where they want to be the best league in the world, but they want to keep the parity. And they feel really strongly that the parity between top and bottom and the fact that, any team can win on any given day is still true. Which do you feel like is the lesser of two evils, I suppose, if this is maybe the way that the NWSL might be going? If it keeps the salary cap, will it become a league of retired players? However, the parity will be there. I don't know. Where do you see this going? And would it be the worst thing to eliminate the salary cap, as we've talked about before?
I like the salary cap. I said it before and I'll say again, I like the salary cap because of the parity.
The least English thing about Allie is that they like the salary cap.
I like the parity. I do. It's one of the things that annoys me about the WSL is the fact that you get teams player hoarding because some are more willing to spend the money than others for various reasons, and it becomes a very imbalanced league. I like the fact that, you can't see it, but I'm currently wearing my Orlando Pride t-shirt, and they came from being ranked bottom for most of their thing to then suddenly winning the double. That's fantastic. I love that. You won't get that in the WSL. So maybe the NWSL needs to suck it up a little bit and be prepared that you are going to end up with players on the older side that want to make that bank for their final couple of seasons. You've not been given any duffers. They're all great players. They're just on the older side.
Yeah, I think I struggle. I go back and forth because I can't help but equate that to the MLS, which I don't think highly of, So I struggle with it. I love the parity of the NWSL. I don't know if eliminating the salary cap is the best move. Maybe it is. I really can't. I go back and forth. I really do. I have no opinion yet, and I don't envy those who are in charge because it's a tough decision, and it's going to be almost impossible to do both. You kind of have to pick one and lean in hard. All right, let's move it along. Let's break it down here. We're not going to go team by team. Instead, we're going to ask some questions. And the first one I want to ask both of us, Allie, is we're looking at the table. San Diego's in first, Utah's in second, Portland's in third, Washington in fourth, Gotham in fifth, etc., etc. I'm not going to read you the whole table. Which teams look well situated right now? And I'm not saying like who's at the top of the table. I'm saying which teams, when you look at their composition, when you look at how they've maybe grown in this first part of the season, 11, 12, 13 games, because some teams have played 11 and some teams have played 12 and some 13. Maybe how they've grown in this first part of the season, maybe players, for example, that they might get in the off part in June, which teams look well situated to make a strong playoff run for you right now?
I think if we base it on the conversation we had with Fook, which is Portland Thorns. Portland Thorns are actually quite strong. They have their moments, and they do need to bring in a couple more defensive players. But for the most part, I think they are definitely on their way to another playoff place, if not the title.
Oh, strong predictions coming through here. I think there's a lot of teams that look well situated. Obviously, we're going to name a lot of teams at the top. I think Utah are looking outstanding. I think Washington are looking very well situated. Gotham have the best defense in the league, at least statistically. They've only allowed 5 goals in 11 games played. That's a pretty wild statistic. I think all of them, to me, those are my top contenders, and that's no disrespect to San Diego, but I think they look well situated. Now, for other teams that might not be in the top of the table but look well situated for the second half, I'm just going to say it. Denver Summit. I think they're going to make a run, and I think that they might slot in a playoff spot, and then maybe anything can happen. They've been, I think, building from game to game. Janine Sonis has stepped into her role in a way that I don't know if any of us could have ever anticipated, and playing outstanding for this Denver Summit side, for her hometown team. I think they have players who are playing at the peak of their games, and I'm not going to say like better than we anticipated, but they're set up really well, and it's a team that is then going to slot Lindsay Heaps into the central midfield, which is arguably where they might need the most help right now. And I think that they're going to make a good run for it.
Can I just say,
those are my teams
said that a couple of weeks ago, and you made fun of me.
Yeah.
Because I said that a couple of weeks ago, that I said that I thought Denver were looking really strong and they will be playoff.
You know what? They
contenders.
had just played really badly after you said that, though.
And you turned around and you were just like, I don't think so, and gave me such a look of derision. And I'm like,
okay,
you've come around.
Let me play it. Let me say it this way then. I think Allie was right.
Yay! Mike, can you clip that so it's my ringtone, please?
I think Denver could make a run for it. Anybody else that stands out to you, Allie, or did we hit them all? What do you think? I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't say San Diego. I think that'd be really stupid. Obviously, they're well situated. They're sitting at the top of the table.
Yeah, San Diego.
What do we both have against them?
I don't know. There is something about San Diego, and I don't know what it is. And I'm sorry, San Diego, but every time I look at them, and I'm just go, ugh, and I don't know what it is.
Is it the Jonas of it all?
Yeah, probably. And the way they treated Casey Stone, it's just made me go, no.
Yeah, but we can't deny this is a team that's insanely well situated.
Correct.
They've scored 19 goals. The only team that scored more, as we already found out earlier in this episode, is Portland, who've scored 20. And they have a relatively solid defense, but it doesn't necessarily matter. But I think what scares us about Portland, or about San Diego, is that they don't really draw. They win or they lose, and that's kind of it. But we've talked about that already.
Yes.
So let's move on.
So, next question is, which teams do we think are playing as they should be and are real, and which teams just seem to be getting by and skating and faking it?
I like this question because I think that there's a lot of teams maybe in the middle of the table that have more points, or their record is better than necessarily like their play has been. And I think we've talked about them already, and it's Kansas City, it's Orlando, it's North Carolina for me also, honestly. I think Seattle, even though they're sitting in 10th, quite honestly, based on their performances, I think that they're faking it a little bit. Like I think that Seattle could, in my opinion, be even lower on the table than they are right now, based on just simply their performances and the eye test and having watched them play.
Can I throw in my beloved Gotham? And it pains me.
What?
Because I love Gotham, I do. But having seen a few of their performances, I'm like, you've got to buck it up, because you could very easily slip out of playoff contention.
That's pretty wild, Allie. For a Gotham FC team that's as stacked as they are, obviously they've suffered some injuries. And for example, like their game against Boston, they were missing a lot of key players, and that didn't necessarily lead to like the best performance. But I mean, we talk about how defense wins championships, and I just mentioned this team has conceded only 5 goals across 11 games.
Yeah, but I feel like that's more luck than anything else.
That is a wild thing to say.
But look at the goals for. They've only scored 12.
Yeah.
That's one of the lowest.
I mean, that's where they need help.
That's the third lowest apart from Chicago and Boston, who are currently 14th and 15th.
Yeah, and Bay.
All right, fourth lowest. Still, it's not good compared to where they are in terms of like table.
Okay, so let's talk Gotham for a second, because how is that possible? Because they're utterly stacked if you look at their roster. Absolutely stacked in every form of being stacked. Like not just on the offensive side, but like in the midfield. We've already, I mean, we have to discuss this, obviously. I mean, Savannah McCaskill technically plays in the midfield, but you can say she's more of an offensive midfielder, so we'll throw her in there. Jaden Shaw, of course, Esther Gonzalez, Midge Purse, despite, Midge Purse is playing a more defensive role because of how much talent they have up top. I think that's how I have to really say this. Like, you have Lily Reel sitting on the bench right now, and because Gura Wrighton has slotted in, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches. So why do you feel like their offense is underperforming?
I don't know. I just generally don't know. I feel like it's so backline heavy, it's so midfield heavy that they're not clicking in the way that you want. And like, especially players like Gonzalez, who is a phenomenal player, it's just not hitting. And so I think if they hadn't got the backline that they do have, they would be far further down the league. So yeah, I do think there's a little bit of faking it in there.
Wow. Okay. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Jordan Dudley, the rookie, who's been utterly outstanding for Gotham FC in that forward position. I think, like, I totally agree with you that you look at their goals for, you look at their goals against. It's like, how is this team sitting where they are when they can't really score that much? But I don't think their defense is at risk of letting up. I don't think that it's luck why they haven't let in the goals that they haven't let in. I think that June will do them well. Injuries will maybe hopefully resolve themselves. Rose Lavelle will get to start and play more minutes, and I think that they will be off to the races. I expect great things from Gotham, but we know in terms of Gotham, when they finish at the top in the regular season, they usually don't do well in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. All right. The next question I want to chat about before we talk maybe team specific is, I want to look at the bottom half of the table here. Which of these teams in the bottom half seem right now to still have a fighting chance? Like, yeah, they're in the bottom of the table now, but I think that's just a for now thing. And they might sit and fight and float mid-table around that 8th playoff spot until the very end and sneak into the playoffs. And they actually have a chance despite not being in that playoff spot right now. And I think let's go everybody below number 8, because the top 8 make the playoffs. So let's go everybody below Orlando.
So I think you can split the table into like multiple sections. I would say the current ones that are in the bottom 3 places, so that's your Boston, your Chicago, and your Racing Louisville. I know you love Racing Louisville. I would say have no hope. I would say they are out. And for Boston, to be honest, I think it's just to show a good showing for your ignorable season. The other two, we never had much hope for Chicago in the first place. Sorry, Chicago.
News broke on May 27th that they fired general manager Richard Fuse following the dismal isn't a great, maybe it is. Anyways, I was going to say they're dismal 3 wins, 9 losses start, 3-9. Dismal, I guess. I mean, 9 is the most losses of anybody on this table, so I suppose you could say dismal. They have not drawn whatsoever. They've lost 4 out of the last 5 games that they played. Their only win in those last 5 was against a Bay FC team that went down to 10 players really early on in the game, and then also lost their goalkeeper about partway through the second half, so ended up playing with 9 players, which is utterly wild. And Chicago were able to take it on a late winner, we'll say. So I guess my question for you, Allie, about Chicago. Firing of a GM, is this a good news for you or a bad news for you to hear that the Chicago Stars had fired their general manager?
I think it sums up what you said to me, which was about time. And it is about time, because if the general manager's not going to do anything, then what can other people that are involved in the decisions do? So I think it is about time. Will we see a massive difference this season? Absolutely not. I don't think we will. But I do think this will be a positive step going forward for Chicago.
I couldn't agree more. They haven't done enough to bring enough good talent in, but I'm going to say it here as well. The GM's not the only problem. The ownership's the problem. And until that changes over, unfortunately, the woes for Chicago will continue on. Racing, I think, have a similar resources issue, if you will. They have a fantastic head coach, but there's only so much she can do if she's not supported by the resources from the club. And that's disappointing to say, but there it is. So I would agree. Sadly, I agree with you. Boston have been fun. They've been energizing. I kind of feel bad including them in that pack that I'm going to I've counted them out fully. But in a way I have. But when they're good, they're good. I have high hopes for them for next season. And I guess I would agree with you there. I think what you're trying to say, Allie, correct me if I'm wrong, is that those bottom three maybe don't have a fighting chance, but everybody sitting from 9th to 13 in Denver, Seattle, Houston, Angel City, and Bay FC, you could see squeaking in.
Correct.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I really do. I guess final question for you. We've talked a lot about Houston, so I'm not going to cover Houston. I think that they started strong. I think injuries decimated them, and I think it's not the season for them. Another team that started strong and have really fallen, that I think is the final team we'll talk about here and the final point we'll make before we close out. Angel City. They started so strong. Everybody was so high on them. And they've won 1 of their last 5. They've lost 3 out of those 5. In their last 5, it's 1 win, 1 draw, 3 losses. Let's just say it there. What is going on at Angel City?
I genuinely don't know, because on paper they've got a fantastic squad and you look at it and you go, that should be a top 5 at least contending team, and then they just don't.
I think it's a bench. I think they've got a great starting 11, but you need more. I think they just need a stronger bench. I kind of think that's where they're at. I think Angel City investing in 3 players in this June, I'm going to keep calling it a window because it's not a transfer window, but it is a window in the league, could maybe do them wonders here. All right, Allie, we did it. NWSL kicks back off, as we said, Friday, July 3rd. It'll be Washington Spirit against Houston Dash, Denver Summit against KC Current, and Angel City against Orlando Pride. Those are 3 great games to kick it off for a Friday night. My goodness. And we will return 2 days before that, July 1st.
So make sure you check out our Patreon. We've got a really great News in 10 where we are going to be talking about the Plymouth Argyle situation of it all. Unfortunately, some very disappointing news coming out of the Southern League, and me and Sarah will go into it on the News in 10, which is on our Patreon.
All right, that does it for us here, and I guess a wrap on season 8, Allie?
Season?
Question mark?
As if we're hitting season 9.
Yeah. Well, I guess that is. It does it for season 8. It's been a pleasure working with you, partner.
It's been a pleasure with you too.
Excited to kick off season 9 with you in just 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's wild. All right, that does it for us. We'll see you again July 1st. Until then, enjoy the Challenge Cup. Enjoy the World Cup for the men's side if you're watching. And we will see you soon. So for the Women's Soccer Show, I've been Sarah.
And I've been Allie.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.